Hi guys, welcome back to another day of LentL and thank you for coming again. If you're here for the first time, we welcome you with open arms. Today we're going to focus on Jesus before Pilate, which is in Matthew 27 verse 11 to 26. So if you could get your word out and read this with me. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priest and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Wow, what a word. So there's so much to unpack from that. And in the notes that I wrote, first of all, what stood out to me was that Pilate seems out of character with Jesus compared to the cruelty he usually shows, which means that he knew that something was different about Jesus. He could see it in him, he could see it on him. And that's the anointing of God. And that's the same with us. When we go to our jobs or we go to our front lines, wherever that is, and we pick up that cross, God has an anointing on us. We're all called, we're all loved by him. And people can notice the difference in us. His light shines through us, and just as it was on Jesus in this situation. Another thing that stood out to me was that Jesus humbled himself, and he used the wisdom he had gained and he had learned, and he applied it to the situation, and he gave the reply that he needed for God's will to be done. Sometimes in life, you don't always have to defend yourself. You don't always have to say something. It's knowing when to speak and knowing when to be silent. And Jesus knew exactly when to do that. And that can relate to all of us as believers. There's times where we need to sit back and engage. And there's times where we need to go forward and speak. He also used the wisdom which was important. And Pilate had in his heart that Jesus was innocent, but he let the crowd dictate his actions. Even though he had the merciful message from God through his wife's dream, which was confirmation that he was innocent, he still ignored it. And that shows us that even when we have our intentions right and our heart has the right thing set on, if we do the wrong actions and we carry out the wrong things, it doesn't matter. Another thing that I wrote down was that he tried to clean his hands and judge himself not guilty when he knew he was wrong. This shows us that even when we do things, we need to think of the consequences. We need to think of the possible backlash, because it doesn't affect just us. It affects people around us, and it also affects the will of God. You don't want to be disobedient. On the flip side, even though he rejected the merciful message, and even though he ignored his wife's dream, this was all God's plan. This was all God's provision. Jesus knew what he had to do, and he wasn't afraid to suffer, but he let God's will be done. And the question is, are we willing to do the same? Sometimes in life, we have to go through things which are uncomfortable in order to grow or in order for a bigger purpose. Jesus knew what he had waiting ahead of him. Jesus had faith in that, and he had trust in God. A lot of times we try to do things ourselves because we think our way is better, or we don't see the understanding in the situation, in the midst of the chaos we're in. But when you have God on your side, you have to trust in that, because he is the almighty and all-knowing God, and we trust in his plan. Are you willing to submit and to let go of the things you need to let go of in order for God's will to be done? Because at the end of the day, it's all for our good and for his glory. So we need to trust in that.